We interrupt your regularly scheduled programming for this Infinite Loop special report.
There is a grave mountain lion infestation sweeping the nation. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Infinite Loop Show episode, I don't know, what, 4.5?
C.
That's what you wanted to call it, episode 4.5. This is the Mountain Lion Special Report. I am Michael Gaines.
And I am Casey Coughlin.
So, if you're a Mac fan and have been living under a rock like Casey was this morning,
No.
you'll know that
No.
Mountain Lion was released this morning.
My
Yes.
finger was on the pulse of Mac
Wait,
News.
Digital Spider says this is episode 4S. That's actually good. No, so I sent Casey a text message this morning. I said, I'm going to go play with Mountain Lion, and she thought I was serious.
I'm like, an actual mountain lion? Great. I'll catch up with you later.
Well, that's what I do in my spare time. Arr, arr, arr.
Oh, well, that's cool. Whatever floats your boat.
Okay, so anyway, Mountain Lion is out. This is a developer preview of we can't call it Mac OS 10 anymore. It is
No.
OS 10.8.
Well, I mean, you can call it whatever the hell you want.
We call it Fred.
Yeah.
No, they dropped the Mac from the name.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so we were talking about this earlier. You feel like this is kind of just an infringement on, and maybe even just foreshadowing, the storm on the horizon, dropping the Mac from the Mac OS X.
Well, yeah, sort of. I'm a little worried. I'm worried. Here's why I'm worried. I'm worried because, as we've seen over the last few months, years, is that the Mac line has become fat in the iMac section. It's like there's the Mac Pro on one end and it's really small, and then there's the Mac Mini on the other end and it's really small, and then in the middle is the big fat iMac. And so if they were to call it something else and take the word Mac out of the name, they can do that. And I'm a little worried about that they may do that. Now, does it matter? If the machine is the same, does it matter? It's more of a historical thing. It's been a Mac for, since 1984.
Yeah, but you could say the same thing when they took computer out of Apple Computer Inc.
That's true. And I was a little worried about that too.
So you just worry a lot.
No, I don't worry a lot. All right. There's a positive flip side to this in my head too, is that it's possible that they're converging iOS and OS 10 in such a way, as a developer, I know that there are a lot of similarities and a lot of differences in how you develop for Mac OS 10 and iOS.
Right.
However, there are a lot of similarities as well, and there's a possibility that they can take a lot and merge them together in such a way. There are some differences. For example, the drop-down pane on the iPad. I don't think there's a native equivalent of that in Mac OS in the Mac OS 10.
The overlay menu.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's coming. I mean, look at when you download something in Safari and it goes up to that little icon in the top right, and then if you click on that little overlay. So I'd imagine that's probably not too hard to extrapolate to other apps.
What you would want to do, I would think, in my opinion, is that you would want to converge the user experience more than anything. Under the hood, doesn't really matter. If you want to create a UI view, if you want to do an NSURL, I'm talking developer speak here. NSURL is the same on Mac OS 10 as it is on iOS. There are a lot of similarities. How views work and layering, that's very, very similar. However, iOS has obviously some differences, especially in the user experience department, because everything is done with touch. However, look at Mac OS 10 and how it's been doing gestures with the touchpad. So it's entirely possible that the reason why they dropped the word Mac from Mac OS 10 is because they have a plan. Apple always has a plan. Is that they have a plan of at some point, maybe not a Mac OS 10, or I should say OS 10.8, but maybe 10.9 or maybe even 10.10 if they still have the OS 10 name at that point, because it's going to be OS 10.10.
I would think, okay, if say they're gonna do what you're thinking, and the iOS hardware comes up to such a point that it is mature and beefy enough to handle a more mature operating system, and then the Mac OS is simplified down to such a point, and they meet like this happy medium that you're talking about.
Sure.
I could see that being OS 11.
Here's what I'm thinking. OS 10, I mean, it has a number. It's a version number. It went from Mac OS 8, OS 9, OS 10. It was a natural progression, and it was a radical change between 9 and 10. We all know the history of that. I'm not going to get into it. However, as version numbers go, and as nomenclature goes, is Mac OS 10.10 going to work from a marketing point of view? So now what I'm thinking is maybe the entire developer ecosystem may become iOS.
Right. Instead of having two SDKs, you just have one fat SDK to develop from.
Yeah. Now, I got to be honest, is that I've been a Mac developer for a very long time. However, I've not done so much detailed work on the Mac and detailed work on iOS to know what like a Venn diagram where the fatness would be and where the skinny parts would be. Meaning that I don't know what would be unique to one or the other. Even though some things are obvious, for example, there are no like close buttons on the top of an iOS app. No close, minimize, maximize, right? You know, event handlers like that. I mean, those things are going to be unique to OS 10. However, again, Apple may have a plan. They may have a way. They may have a new way of wrapping Windows. Because a view is a view is a view on OS 10 and iOS. If you go into Interface
Couldn't they
Builder,
just make that like a nav bar at the top?
Sure, that's what I mean. Is that
yeah?
Is that your view can look the same on both?
Right, exactly.
You use a UI
and then
view, throw it all in Interface Builder, build it the same way on both, but your wrapper around the view may be different. So that's entirely possible. So that's that. We got that out of the way. We talked about that for a little too long. Let's talk about, the highlights of this thing. So you have highlights written here.
Yeah, and you've played around with this, whereas I've just been watching YouTube videos. I mean, I've played around with iMessage since that was,
just
or
message.
I guess it's just messages.
Yeah,
sorry,
just messages.
It's just messages. Came out for beta download today. It's not in the App Store. You'd have to go to apple.com and download it from the website. But it pretty much takes over, unless I'm wrong, it looks like it just takes over iChat and turns it into messages. And so much like messages on the iPad and iPhone, you can message between all three devices now instead of just iOS devices.
Right. So messages came out today for... as Casey just said, a beta for 10.7 only. You can't use it on 10.6. I tried, and it says, no, you can only use it in Lion. Okay. I still use 10.6 for my main stuff, as I've said before, because I've got some driver issues in Lion that have not been resolved, so I'm still stuck with 10.6. In fact, I couldn't do this with Lion right now the way it is. Well, maybe I could differently, but not the easy way. So I was playing with messages on 10.8, and it's very nice how there are two big things. One is that you can send SMS messages through the iMessage service, even though the app is called Messages. It's the iMessage service that you have on the iPad and the iPhone, and so you can. I was sitting here. Casey and I were sending messages back and forth to each other, the messages were going both to my phone and my computer, and they were going to your phone and your line computer running the message preview.
Yeah, and I was messaging other people and kind of found that, I mean, it's not completely seamless the way it works.
Right. There's some bugs.
Depending on what you used previously, how your iCloud or Apple ID is set up, it it depends on where it goes, and even within the Messages app on the Mac, when you're in a conversation with somebody and you see their little contact bubble at the top, there's a drop down that you can actually select, and depending on what you have connected to that contact's contact card in address book, which apparently is going to be renamed Contacts now in Mountain Lion to sync up with iPad and iPhone.
Right.
And anyways, say you have that person's contact in your address book. Say it's only got the one email address that's their message ID or their Apple ID. It'll only show up that. But if you have other stuff in that contact card, a phone number, a second mail address, an AIM account, attached from iChat previously, you can actually choose from that drop down those other accounts and kind of switch within the same conversation, different accounts and whatnot, and that will kind of hinder what it is sent to.
And we were doing that. Is that what you were doing? Is that you and I were sending messages back and forth to each other with our usual iMessage account. Then you switched to my phone number.
Right, and it created like a second conversation.
Yeah, and those messages were only going to my phone. Then you switched back, and then they went back to going to my phone and to messages. So that was pretty sweet. I have to say, it was nice to, because I text messages are nice, but because I keep my phone on my belt most of the time, I don't get a lot of text messages, so when I do, it's like I gotta get the phone out and everything. It's nice to have it there on the desktop.
Yeah, well, and I think most people, I mean, even myself being younger and of that kind of texting generation more, even I type way faster on a full keyboard than I can ever with my thumbs on the iPhone.
I can type fast on my thumbs.
I can type faster than most, sure, but I mean, not as compared to a full desktop keyboard. That's always going to be faster.
Oh, yeah, it's always going to be fast. Well, I don't know. There was always that guy who could do an abacus faster than a guy who could do a calculator.
Okay, whatever.
There is one thing that I found about emoji. Now, you and I were talking about this earlier, is that how do you send emoji? Well, it turns out...
Yes, because smiley poops are very important, and we want them cross-platform stat.
That seems to be more important to you than me, but yes, we need our emoji. I was looking at apps, and then I don't know why I thought of it, but I thought about looking at special characters. Turns out that if you go while you're in Messenger, well, any app for that matter in 10.8, if you go to edit,
is it hooked up with the font book, or is it per app?
You know what? I really don't know, because I don't know. But all right, so I'll just say how it works in Messenger. Is that if you go to edit, the edit menu up top in your menu bar, and then special characters at the bottom of that list, and it'll bring up like the Unicode and things like that. There's an emoji section. And there's an emoji section, and that's broken down by character types, and then you can select your smiley poop or whatever it is that you want to select. And so we were sending emoji back and forth. First, you sent me an emoji, and I thought, okay, that must be why I thought of it, is that if it showed up...
Well, I sent it from my phone to your Mac.
Right.
So yeah, the characters showed up correctly as they should.
Right. And I figured if it can show up in the Mac, then there's got to be a way to send it out.
Right, exactly.
And I think that's how I got the idea of going from to edit.
And those were, the emoji, I mean, at first they were an app that you had to download and instantiate, but in iOS 5, they were actually built in as like an international keyboard in settings.
Right.
So it kind of makes sense that in Mountain Lion it'd be pretty much the same thing.
Moving on, I think we're done with Messenger. Oh, no, there's one thing that I wanted to say that I found out is that even though you're logged into Messenger and you can send and receive text messages over the iMessenger service, you are not logged in to your AIM account with that same email address.
Unless you switch it.
No, you don't have to switch it. You have to actually add it. That's what I had to do. I had to go into Messenger accounts and then add my.
So much like when you're first setting up iChat and you have to add in each your Jabber and your Gtalk and all those accounts. Oh, okay. So you have to redo that. That doesn't carry over.
No. It didn't for me. I had to actually add it in myself.
It's bizarre.
But, yeah.
I would think it would be the same preferences and metadata back in the background, but
you would think.
Whatever.
But it doesn't matter. I mean, it worked and it's great, and I thought it was awesome. There's a Twitter service built into the operating system, not an app, but the service is built into the operating system. I saw a video of this. Is that you can tweet from within Safari. So it used to be that if you had an article or something that you liked, you would have to copy the URL, go into your Twitter application, type in something really clever, and then you would post the link. Well, now what you can do is that to the left of the address bar, there's that usual, I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's like a send icon. It's the arrow that goes
the action.
out. Yeah,
the action button.
Right. So there's there's an action button, and you can, I don't remember what they all were, but one of them was tweet. One of them was sent through iMessage. And I think
it's much like iOS 5, where in iOS 5 there's like tweet, email, if it's a picture, save to, photos, all those actions that come up when you hit that action button, depending on the app, most of them will come up. And I saw, that was working in a few different applications in Mountain Lion. Much like, a lot like, actually, iOS 5.
Yeah.
Depending on the app, again, if you're in YouTube, that action button will call to port the video, say, over AirPlay and everything. And that's something else that Mountain Lion will do now with the Apple TV, that it'll actually mirror to your Apple TV just like your iPad and iPhone will. So you can pretty much do the same thing as far as audio and video goes, just pushing it to the Apple TV.
Right, and this is a good example of the differences between two different operating systems, two different ecosystems, and how they present the same data. With the action button on 10.8, when you click it, as you saw in the video, it brings a little drop-down menu. But when you click an action button in iOS, it brings up an action sheet with buttons. So that's how it would be different. Now, you can code that. You can easily code that and say, I want this to be whatever generic name that it is. You feed the data to the fields that it's going to be in and say, okay, on iOS, it's got to be a button. In Mac or OS 10, it can be a list with a button. I mean, not a button, an icon. Like it was in the video for 10.8. So that's entirely possible, too. Just going back to what we were talking about before. Let me see what else. Going back to Messenger real quick is that you can FaceTime directly from it. You and I did that real quick.
It seems like it opens up FaceTime. Like FaceTime, from the way that the message app is set up, you see the little FaceTime icon in the upper right-hand corner, and so it kind of looks like FaceTime is built into the app, but it's kind of not. You hit that button, and then it almost calls up the FaceTime app separately. So you have your message buddy list, and then all of a sudden you have your FaceTime list, which is pretty much just your address book in the list. But I mean, so it's kind of just like a link to another app almost, just not really built in.
Sure.
But that that could change. Obviously, this is just beta.
One thing that I noticed is that the action button from Safari, I just want to go back to that real quick, is that there was no post in Facebook. But again, it's a DP, so I don't know why it wasn't in the video, but it could come later.
Well, that's not system wide in iOS either, is it?
I don't believe so. No, I think they only,
So
from what I
probably for the
read.
same reasons, there was early talks that they were going to do that with Facebook, and then all of a sudden, iOS 5 shipped with no Facebook
Hmm.
native integration. So
Yeah,
again,
we'll see what
maybe that's
happens. I mean,
right.
again, it's a developer preview. We cannot judge based on this. Except all I could say is that I like it more than I like Lion. Because when Lion came out and I had the developer preview, I just went, okay, that's cool. I'm back to Snow Leopard.
So does Mountain Lion then feel more polished then? Does it feel like Lion was almost a rushed version of Mountain Lion to you?
That's actually a good question. That's a good way of putting it. Is that I did not like Lion when the developer preview was out and I played with it. I just went, no, I don't like this. This, you're right. This actually feels like what Lion probably should have been. Yeah.
And we won't, mention any other operating systems that might have had a similar release.
Sure, why not?
So they've done away with, also in Safari, they've done away with the Google search box.
Mm-hmm. So,
they have kind of a unified address bar, much like Chrome now.
Mm-hmm. So now when you type in something, I mean, it's pretty smart. You can't put well, technically you're not supposed to put a space in a URL. It'll map to %20, but if it sees that you're trying to search for something, like tell me what my IP address is or something like that, it'll know you're trying to do a search. Mm-hmm. As opposed to if you type in one word, I don't know exactly what it does, but if you type in the word dog, I don't know what happens. I don't know if it thinks that you're trying to go to dog.com or if you're searching for a dog.
Well, if it works like Chrome, anything that's not a obvious and inherent URL, it's going to automatically throw into Google and search for.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Because if you do that, chances are the .com will be your first choice anyway.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that far more useful. I like, that's one of my favorite features of Chrome is the unified search address bar. And after using it for a certain amount of time, I find myself even doing that in Chrome or in Safari rather, and then not getting the results I want.
Messenger, I haven't tried this because I just don't use Yahoo anymore, but apparently Yahoo Video now works with the new Messenger app.
Oh, well, yay.
Yay, for that one guy who's using
I know.
Yahoo Video. Okay.
Yeah.
There's an old iChat style UI, like everybody has like in Snow Leopard and Lion. However, I found that it seemed integrated. Like I couldn't, like what I do is I have separate windows for each of the accounts that I have that I'm using iChat for. This one had them all merged into one, and I couldn't figure out how to split them.
Well, that's what I've always done. Anytime I use iChat with multiple accounts, or what I've been using for the last few years, really is Adium, and you can do the same thing, break them up into groups. Or just have, one massive list with kind of dividers in between the accounts. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's what I've always had too. It feels like what Messages feels like is they took a lot of pages from Adium's book, which is good.
Let's talk about the notification system real quick. I really like this.
This looks amazing, and I'm super jealous and want to try it like an hour ago.
Well, the video shows that there's a circle in the upper right-hand corner. It's basically a black circle with a smaller black circle inside it.
So it's like to the right of the spotlight magnifying glass on the menu bar.
Mm-hmm. And so when you get a message, you'll hear something, and then the inner circle will turn blue. I would prefer, and maybe they'll improve this later, but all I saw was that it just turned blue. I would rather have something that says, you've got a new mail message, or maybe it just didn't show up in the video that I saw, but I would really like it if it, and I'm sure it will. Again, it's a DP, so I'm not judging it too harshly on this. I'm actually looking at the positive side of this, is that when you click the button, your entire desktop slides over to the left, and then your messages show up in a pane, very similar looking to the messages list on an iOS device. Except the difference is that in an iOS device, it pulls right down
It
from the
pulls
top.
over like an overlay instead of being an underlay revealed.
Right, which is the new that now again. This is going back to like the Facebook and Path app on iOS.
That's true.
Is
This is
that
a new library for iOS that it's like they're now implementing into the Mac SDK.
right? Which I've done. I have actually. I'm writing an app now where I'm actually doing the sliding of the view so that there's something underneath it, and it's really not that difficult. After looking,
Such a slick looking
it is
effect too.
and it's only like this line, this many lines of code. But like I had to dig through this stupid sample app, which was like several hundred lines of code just to find that. And
The little
but once I
nugget.
figured it out, it was really easy, and it's working now, and it's slick as hell. And
I love it. I love that effect. It just it could be like the crappiest app, and you have that little view slider, and you're like, oh, genius.
Anyway, the messages center. Yeah, your entire desktop slides over to the left, and you get this menu of items.
You can click on the icon in the menu bar, but there's also a gesture associated with it, of course.
Okay.
They were saying on the Verge's video, I think it's 2 fingers from right to left.
Probably. But wait, doesn't 2 videos... It depends on what's on the top, though, isn't it? Because if Safari's on the top and you do that...
Yeah, then you're going to just scroll.
Maybe...
Because 2 fingers up and down and right and left scroll in any window. So yeah, maybe you have to have Finder focused.
Maybe. Okay. Well, anyway, I don't know, but I'll have to look it up or something like that. But,
more research.
Yeah, research. More research. But that's really, really nice. iCloud integration is cool. What they have now is like I pulled up TextEdit and then I just typed a bunch of garbage and then I did save. And the first place that it asked me to save was iCloud. Not your documents folder, but iCloud. I don't know if I like that just yet. I don't know if I want iCloud to be my default just yet. DP, don't know. But, just also in the video, we saw the video where somebody did the same thing and iCloud was right on top. And I'm still a hard drive guy.
Now, is this like MobileMe's iDisk? Can you mount iCloud as a disk to your computer, or is that just kind of showing up in the save preferences?
I don't know. I don't know. It may be too early to tell, but I'm hoping that you can at least mount these file systems because you don't always want to open the document with the same app that you created it with.
Yeah, exactly.
For example, an RTF with TextEdit, and then you want to open it up in Pages. Or a doc file. Somebody may throw you a doc file, and how do you share this stuff? I don't know. I don't know that.
Yeah, right. If iCloud's only showing up as, say, a save as destination in that drop down, just in that, and nowhere else, then yeah, those files that you save are just kind of stuck in that TextEdit silo, and never shall they migrate over to the Pages silo or the Word silo or what have you.
Yeah.
So then everything is just kind of stuck in like almost their own little sandbox, their own little micro ecosystem within the greater ecosystem.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of things that are unknown, and nobody has really reported anything about that specifically. So I don't know. I'm just talking about what's out there publicly at this point. What else? Reminders is now a separate app, which is nice. I think it was embedded in iCal. iCal is now called Calendars, and Notes, which used to be integrated into Mail, is now a separate app. Thank God, because I used to have to open Mail every time I wanted to write a note, and I didn't always want to open Mail.
Yeah, it was kind of weird that, I mean, it kind of made sense that those two, Reminders and Calendar, and Notes and Mail were, kind of mother and child. But again, it makes more sense that they're all separated out, especially if a lot of newcomers and a lot of people who are converting from Windows come over, and a lot of those conversions are happening because of the iPad and because of iPhone.
Right.
And so if that's their first foray into the Mac OS or the Apple ecosystem, and they're used to, all of those, and then they come to the Apple desktop and, oh, wait, what? What's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. Some other little things. Mac OS 10.8 does not run on my Mac Pro.
But we already knew it was way time for you to upgrade.
Oh, well, going back to what I'm always saying is, where are the new Mac Pros? It will not run. I tried to install it on this machine, and it just said, no, I'm sorry, I can't.
Do we know what the system requirements are yet for Mountain Lion?
There are some sites out there that have been talking about it, and I don't think Apple has officially said anything, so it's a little too early to tell, and it would probably not be responsible to say this is exactly what it is. But all I can tell you is that it just did not work on my Mac Pro, so I just couldn't get it to run. There are some sites out there that said that it will work on a Mac Pro from 2008 and later, and it will run on a MacBook Pro from 2007 and later, I believe. I think a mid 2007 MacBook Pro. But again, these are speculations based on I don't know. I don't even know what.
Yeah. Well, probably as of right now, if Apple hasn't put out a hard and fast spec sheet, then it's probably just a lot of people testing it on whatever hardware they have lying around. So
true. I think, is that it? I think that's it. Yeah. So that's all that we have. That's all we can say, and we're just happy that this is out. And
there's one note I was curious about. You have here about 32-bit operating systems.
Oh, yeah. So there was a way to check to see if maybe your system will work. And I did see that. I didn't talk about it because I really wasn't sure exactly.
Oh, okay.
Because we don't know exactly what the specifications are for Mountain Lion, because they can change anytime. But there was a website that I went to. I forgot what the name of it was. They said that in line, you have to do this in line, not Snow Leopard, because Snow Leopard will still allow some systems to run as 32-bit and not 64. You have to run this in line. You go to terminal and you type uname-a, uname space -a, and if you have the 64-bit extensions, then Mountain Lion may work on your system. We don't know, and that's why I really wasn't sure about talking about that, because the actual specs are not out. So
interesting.
That's it.
Well, good stuff. This was a super exciting day for on a Thursday for them to drop this, and with no relative fanfare too. This is kind of, I don't know if it's unheard of, but it's definitely surprising.
Well, it's unheard of. John Gruber was talking about how he got a one-on-one with Phil Schiller about this in Manhattan last week. And I was like, why wasn't I invited?
With keynotes and everything.
Yeah, they had a keynote presentation. If you go to daringfireball.net, John talks about how it was presented to him, and I think it's great. Phil said that they're doing things differently now, and this is radically different to actually go out to Manhattan and do a one-on-one.
Yeah, that's true.
That's radically different.
It might even be more sensical, to do that one-on-one with people or media personalities that were in San Francisco. But they had to fly out there
to Manhattan.
Right. Set their stuff up, their little lounge with an iMac and what have you.
Yep. And do the
pretty
presentation.
Crazy.
I think it's interesting.
Speaking of doing things differently, one thing I don't think we touched on, they're planning on from here on out doing kind of iOS like rollouts, yearly updates now to the Mac OS.
And so because sorry.
No. It just again kind of plays into your theory that the two shall meet and become one.
Yeah. If they're doing annual updates, then it's entirely possible that the prices are going to stay at $30.
Do you think so? You think they're not going to drop them?
What, drop them? I maybe. I mean, what, $15 for an
Well, if
upgrade?
they're
I mean,
doing an update every year,
right.
how substantial can those updates be?
Well, considering that Mountain Lion feels like it's more of an incremental, I can see this being 30, but remember that Lion itself was 30.
Exactly, exactly.
So,
So that brings the bar down. I mean, Snow Leopard was 30, Lion was 30, and those were pretty big updates. So if Mountain Lion and future updates are a little bit smaller, I don't see why they couldn't. And hell, we all know Apple has enough money. Not that I'm saying anything, but why couldn't they drop the price down to 20 or 15 on the App Store?
or,
Free.
yep. Because I'm
iOS
thinking,
updates are free.
exactly, iOS
Yeah.
updates are free. Why not make the Mac updates free?
True.
There are reasons why you wouldn't want to give it away for free. Hackintosh.
Yeah. I mean, you can say, oh, you still need a Mac to actually get it out of the Mac App Store, but that's really not that hard.
So this is almost like a lost leader, like the operating. This is like,
That's kind of weird.
well, remember Bic razors? Was it Bic razors? I don't remember if it was Bic razors, but remember that they used to. I think they used to give the razors away for free, but you had to buy the blades. Or was it the other way around? I don't remember. But this was a long time ago, and so this may be similar. This may be the lost
Or
leader that
what
Apple
if,
has to.
yeah, no, they, give the operating system updates for free, much like iOS, charge for the hardware, and then any apps, put out, or even just take out iLife completely out of the operating system. Like when you buy a new Mac, or even what messages, or no, because that's still kind of
I'm on reserve battery power, by the way.
apparently.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna have to plug you in for a second. Hold on one second.
Make the raw operating system free, and then charge for the partnering software, the applications.
Right.
I mean, they already charge for iWork and charge for iLife upgrades, but if they just make iLife like iWork, where you have to pay for it all of the time.
So yeah, and by the way, it was buy the blades separately. I don't know what I was smoking when I said the other way around. Yeah, you had to buy the blades.
Buy the blades and get a free handle.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what they did. That was their way of giving, because you figure how much does it cost to make the plastic to make the handle, but you have to buy the blades.
What are you going to use the handle with without blades?
Well, and the similar thing goes for the software. It's like, yeah, you can put together a Hackintosh, but in order to get the operating system, you have to go through the App Store. Is the operating system signed? That's a good question.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if it is or not. It's a rhetorical question. I don't know the answer. But my point being is that if you can't run the binary on anything but a Mac, a true Mac, if there's somehow they're going to prevent this in the future. I'm not saying now, because you can obviously build a Hackintosh now.
Right, yeah.
But in the future, who knows?
That's true. Do they start nailing down licensing on the operating system? Because to date, Windows is hard and fast. This is one user, this is 3 users. You have 3 licenses, that's it. Mac operating systems, those disks, if you buy the retail copy of the disk, and still even to date, the Lion USB, you can throw that thing on as many Macs as you want. It'll never ask you for a key. It'll never ask you or even question that it's genuine, what have you.
Yeah.
So do they stop that then? Do they throw in some policies or rules or
maybe
certificates then?
But they may be loose rules, like no key. Apple's got more money than they can handle it. I mean, do you think does it really matter to them if they're losing $30? They want the ecosystem.
They're going to charge $30, but really nail down the licensing. I guess that doesn't make any more sense.
Yeah. By the way, there was one thing that we completely forgot to talk about, which is Gatekeeper. Gatekeeper is a new system where you can determine what kind of apps will run on your system. I'll just say real quick. It's in security and privacy, and it could be signed applications from the App Store, or a mix of signed and unsigned, depending. Like, it'll bring up a dialog box and it'll say, "Do you really want to run this?" If it's unsigned, and then there's an anything goes section setting.
So this is kind of like a continuation of the firewall,
Sort of.
or the file vault. I
File
don't know why.
vault, yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you meant.
Oh, good.
All right. I think that's it.
Yeah, I guess we've covered every little corner of the new operating system until we learn more and have played around with it. I need to get it and install it.
Yeah, you need to pay for that developer license.
I'm not against doing that. I'm really thinking.
Not against it. This morning, you're like, whips out credit card. Yeah, get that developer license taken care of. All right. I think we're done.
Yeah, awesome.
All right.
All right. You may now return to your regularly scheduled program already in progress.
If you want to contact us, I am at StarMike. Casey is Casey Queso. KaceKaso. Kcey. I did that yesterday. I spelled your name wrong again. KACEYKASO on Twitter.
I'm going to make like a little animation with like a bouncing ball on the letters.
Well, that's why I think I did it wrong yesterday. It was like KACEKASO, and then
4 and 4, yeah.
4 and 4, and it was like, oh wait, no, I spelled it wrong. KACEYKASO. Of course, Infinite Loop TV on Twitter and the InfiniteLoopShow.com. What's our email address? The InfiniteLoopShow@gmail.com, I think.
Yep. Email us with questions, comments, hate mail, what have you.
Yep. All right. Thank you for watching and listening, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.